And now, everyone, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to your host, George McNeilly.
Hello and welcome, and thanks everyone for joining us here on campus at Full Sail University, and for those of you who are online. My name is George McNeilly. I'm a course director for the Sports Marketing and Media program, part of the Sports Business Models curriculum here at Full Sail University, and I'm hosting this session that we've entitled Pathways to Success in Sports, Recreation, Entertainment, and Resort Business Industries. And what a panel we've assembled today. In the spirit of full disclosure, I am a member of Florida Citrus Sports, and I work with a number of the folks here on this panel throughout the year. I've come to know them. I've come to incredibly respect them. And to my immediate left, Steve Hogan is the Chief Executive Officer of Florida Citrus Sports. Sloane Kelley is the Senior Director of Content for the PGA Tour. Leonard is the General Manager of the Wyndham Lake Buena Vista Disney Springs Resort, the closest hotel to Disney Springs. Yes, I beat you to it. And Chad Reed is the Creative Director for NBC Universal's Golf Channel. These folks are all local or fairly local. Sloane came up from Ponte Vedra PGA Tour headquarters and the beautiful digital center they have there in St. Augustine, but everybody else is here in town. And certainly names that you're probably quite familiar with if you keep up in the business news, as you should be doing, with tourism, travel, sports, entertainment, and all the initiatives and things that you're studying here at Full Sail University. I'd like to begin by asking each of you to take us through your career path. Just basically work experiences, aha moments, how it all began after college, because some of these folks immediately and some maybe a little bit in the further out future are going to be thinking about, how do I start? I got this degree in my hand. What am I supposed to be doing? And you get to start.
All right, great. Well, thanks for tolerating us, I think, as a panel will be first. Hopefully it's not hopefully it's beneficial, I'll say. You know, most of us, I think when we were in college, I'll certainly say for myself, I had no clue what I wanted to do when I was done. It was one of those things that, you know, that was the next step. So, you know, I'm sure a lot of people here are more incredibly focused than I was. It was that I had no other solution than I needed to go to. I went to a state college, JC first, and then transferred into University of Central Florida at the time. And so when I graduated, I was working at what was Church Street Station back in the days. And in those days, it was a tourist destination. You bought a ticket and you went to it and hung out. And so I was just, you know, checking IDs and shagging coolers and everything like anybody else until I found a real job. And that first real job was, you know, sales, because there was really no other way forward. I was a journalism major. I was an advertising public relations major. And so my first opportunity to at least be gainfully employed was selling cell phones. So I worked for Cellular One back in those days. I think now it's, after many iterations, it's AT&T Wireless. So I handled business accounts in West Florida, in Tampa area. After that, went into the newspaper industry, again, selling advertising. And that's I mean, it's no offense to the newspaper industry, but it's a dying, you know, kind of dead business, at least in its current form. So it was like, you know, going to work, this is an important thing, I think, in all of our careers. You know, you sit there one day and say, I can't stand getting up and going to work. I hate what I do, you know, and that's never a good recipe for success. And an opportunity opened up at Florida Citrus Sports, which is a company that manages primarily college football postseason bowl games. We do it at what is today's Camping World Stadium, but we do so much more with the Pro Bowl and the ACC Football Championship and on and on and on and on. Metallica here in a few months and all that fun stuff. So you know, I got an opportunity to go backwards in pay and backwards in title and just be an event manager. And I got to tell you, I found myself loving what I did. I wanted to go to work every day. I wanted to stay until they kicked me out, and just got more and more opportunities. So I'd say, you know, my pathway was just finding what you love doing every day and being happy with what you're doing, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. So I've been there for 20 years. I became the CEO of Florida Citrus Sports in 2006 after they did a national search, and been there ever since. So that was my pathway to my current title.
Congratulations on your 10th anniversary, going into your 11th year. That's quite amazing.
Thank you.
I know that you, Sloane, are not too choked up or broken up to hear that newspaper is dying, considering digital content is what you live and breathe. Talk about what you do at the PGA Tour.
Sure. At the PGA Tour, I oversee our content strategy across all of our digital platforms. So that's our website, apps, virtual reality, and all of our social networks, which really everything for us spans the globe. We're very focused on key markets, obviously here in the United States, but also over in the UK, various parts of Asia. We do a lot on homegrown social networks there as well, Weibo, WeChat. So I oversee a pretty large team of about 30 plus full-time content creators. Analysts make up our team, other strategists that help us with some of our global content that we put out there for people to see. So certainly newspaper going away doesn't hurt us, helps us, often helps us with recruiting in some cases too. But yeah, that's my role. My path to the tour was certainly not a traditional one. I don't think I envisioned myself being here, but I've been loving every minute of it. I actually started out in front of the camera as opposed to behind, which is where I ultimately sort of found my true calling and love. But being in front of the camera allowed me to pay my way through college, which was something that was not really going to happen in my family situation at the time. It took me around the world. I lived in France, lived New York City for a long time. And ultimately, when I graduated from NYU in broadcast journalism, I was at a bit of a turning point, getting out of my previous role and moving into content. And fortunately for me, that was maybe one of my aha moments in my career. I had a love of writing, I had a love of production, shooting, editing, the whole thing. And I felt like at the time, the way that the industry was set up, it was like, you're going to go be a print writer or you're going to go do production. And I was like, I want to do everything. And what I found was in digital, you can do all of that. And it's sort of led me to where I am now. I spent about 7 years working at a creative agency before I joined the PGA Tour. And that definitely helped me kind of hone my chops. Working with brands like Coca-Cola, Harry Potter films, Behringer wine, a whole very broad set of different clients. And in that time, the other thing that I'll mention that I think gave me a lot of good experience and just kind of took some initiative was I started a nonprofit and a technology conference called Geekend, and had a ton of fun with that. I ran it for 4 years. It's continued on after my existence, or after my departure, thankfully. But that was definitely a lot of good lessons just in terms of starting a nonprofit for one and how to manage all of that. So a lot of interesting lessons along the way.
You were even a model as a young lady, weren't you?
I was. That was my first career, and it's what took me around the world and ultimately helped me get through school as well.
See what you have in common with Jay Leonard. He models Tommy Bahama shirts at his resort over at the Wyndham Disney Springs quite often.
I did wear a jacket and tie for you today, George.
I appreciate it. Tell us about what you do over there on the Disney property as managing a huge resort complex that's not owned by Disney, but is certainly held higher than Disney standards, your own.
Yeah, thanks, George. And I really appreciate getting invited to participate today. I feel like I'm the senior statesman up here, I think. I've been in hospitality now for 36 years. It's funny, we were talking about where we started and kind of where we got to. I was going to be a teacher. I started, also went to a junior college and then went on to university and was going to go for my teaching degree. And this little community in Atlantic City, New Jersey opened up as a casino. And at the time, a lot of teachers were abandoning teachers and going down to be casino dealers. I went down there and actually got hired on the spot to be a housekeeping supervisor. At the time, growing up, I worked in a hospital and worked as a housekeeper. and they needed a midnight to 8 to 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning relief supervisor. It's not a very beautiful career in Atlantic City, taking care of those things, but that's where my career started. And got attached to the right organizations. I went from the one casino was called Caesars Boardwalk Regency to Hilton. Wound up going to Hilton in New Orleans. Went to the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach. Went to this place, New York City, and worked at the Millennium Hilton and in the New York Hilton. Went to Philadelphia. Went to Scottsdale, Arizona, and worked for this gentleman called Merv Griffin. If you're familiar with what Merv Griffin did, he started this little show called Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, and he was a little iconic in the world of a lot of probably what you guys study here, entertainment. Started this little talk show that won 24 Emmys or something like that. Went to San Diego. Eventually, I got transferred over here to Orlando. I went to Honolulu, came back to Orlando, and at the last 10 years, I've been working at the Wyndham Lake Buena Vista Resort. I came here to convert it to a different branding. One of the things I do in the hospitality, I rebrand hotels. I've actually rebranded my hotel 3 times. The interesting thing about our business in hospitality, what I did is starting as just a housekeeping manager and working my way up to be general manager isn't uncommon. I've worked with people that have started off as bellman or food and beverage server. When you think of the president of Disney, he started off as in the food and beverage department. So it's a great way to learn the business and have an opportunity to see the world at the same time. I've worked at some great properties. The biggest property is 2,000 room with the New York Hilton to a small little 118 room golf resort in San Diego. And you get to meet a lot of great people, just like this panel. I've been in hospitality actively. I sit on the Visit Orlando board. Here I'm involved in Central Florida Hotel Lodging Association. I sit on the board of Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital. My owner reminds me, when do you find time to run the hotel? Being that I'm out so often doing things. But it's a great career. It's a great way to make a living. It's really a great way to see the world. The great thing about hospitality is it's anywhere. You know, you were talking about your travels. You were staying probably in a hotel.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, there's a hotel somewhere, and they're always looking for people from Dubai to Africa to South America to any place in the United States.
Thank you, Jay. Chad, Reed, I watch your channel probably more than any other except during college bowl season. And I'm not saying that for you, it's true. Fantastic things you're doing in Orlando. That property, that little engine that started out with a few million subscribers and has turned into a real juggernaut, and you've been part of it for a while. Talk about what you do there at Golf Channel.
So at the Golf Channel, I oversee a pretty good sized 20-person creative crew, and our primary objective is everything creative. We are the solution for the entire company, whether it be brand management, on-air graphics, 3D animation, print, digital, social support. Our team handles that all. And one of the key things is, I call it solutions. We were creative services prior to me going in there, and that was one of the first things I changed. And I kind of like to look at it, we're providing solutions, we're problem solvers. As creatives, that's one of the biggest things that we're tasked with on a day-to-day basis. We have to prioritize, we have to figure out, who are we speaking to, what are we trying to provide, and how are we gonna do it? So that's kind of, the gist of how we operate. I got into the business as a complete creative person. I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, And I had those big dreams of going to work for Pixar and making movies and doing cool special effects and whatnot. And on graduation day, I was approached by a small little video game company. And they said, hey, we'd love to have you, apply for this job. So I ended up showing up one day, and there was a stack of VHS tapes. And they were all the SpongeBob SquarePants episodes. And I kind of, they were just sitting there on the front desk. I walked in, no interview or anything. I just walked in. They said, take these home, watch them, and call us in 2 weeks. So I was like, all right, well, this is intriguing. So it was no Pixar, but it was SpongeBob SquarePants. So I ended up watching countless number of episodes, just back to back to back. Thought it was pretty cool, and I was like, maybe I can, if this is what the job is, I could probably do this. So I started out in video games, and I was a background artist, and I did a lot of backgrounds. My first game was SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. And throughout my video game career, I worked on probably over 60 titles, a lot of PC stuff. We did a Nintendo DS, a lot of little kids games. We did Bratz, SpongeBob, Cars, Shrek, Spider-Man, just countless number of games. And it was a lot of great experiences. Very unique skill set of people that you meet and work with. A lot of different people at different companies that we're working with. A lot of post houses we work with in other countries. So there's a lot of very cool experiences with that. A lot of movie premieres. Just a really neat job. Something I wasn't expecting. And then the economy sort of started taking a dive. And a lot of the big publishers, THQ, Activision, they started kind of pulling away from the games, not sure what people were going to do. So at that point, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that maybe I should start expanding what I'm looking for. And TV was something that intrigued me. And through my network of connections, which at the time was still developing just because I had been with the same company for such a long time, outside of the video game industry were very slim. But I was able to capitalize on the few connections that I did have and started working for Sun Sports, FSN in South Florida. And that was a completely different change of pace. So from working on video games for a year at a time, ended up working on these nice, fun little projects that back to back to back, everything was different, quick deadlines. It was a complete eye-opener to, the rest of the industry. So from there, golf was my passion. I saw an opportunity at Golf Channel, and 7 years ago, I started working at Golf Channel as a senior designer and worked my way up to where I am now.
So you left yourself open with the SpongeBob stories. I've got to ask you, as a manager and leader of people, when things are going really well, what character would you most be like? And when things are going really poorly, which SpongeBob character would you be most like?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say when things are going really well, you're Patrick. And when things are going really bad, you're Patrick.
Oh, I love it.
Because why would you want to be anybody else?
Exactly. Patrick's got it figured out. You talked about a network of connections, and I'll stay down there with you because Sloane and I were talking about this over lunch. We strive for personal branding here at the school and for connections, but it's got to be genuine connections. I often tell people I've got thousands of contacts on LinkedIn, and most of them will return my phone call in 72 hours. How important is it to develop relationships in a digital world?
Oh, it's extremely important. The best thing I can say is, every day when you're sitting down in class, you look around, you look to the person to the right, to the left, that person, it's a two-sided story. So that person is your biggest competition at that moment, and that person is your biggest connection in the future. If you guys both go to a job, if they get the job, they are your in to that industry. So, I mean, you talk to everybody you can, become everybody's friend, really, obviously, the genuine thing, everybody needs to help everybody. And that's the way especially in the creative industry, that's particularly how it works, so.
Anyone else with some thoughts on the contacts that you've made in your career, staying in touch with people, never being too busy in a busy world to return the phone call and make sure you get it done before the end of the day? I'll open it up to the rest of the panel. Thoughts on those type of soft skills that are so important?
Well, as a general manager of a hotel in Lake Buena Vista, I got a lot of good friends. Everybody wants to stay with me. Some of the people, I don't even know who they are, but they say they're my best friends. But networking to me, I've been doing it for a long time. George and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm one of those people that, if I have maybe 10,000 people on my LinkedIn account, and probably don't know all of them as well as I would like to, but my dad gave me some good advice a long time ago, and he reminded me to every day you should be networking for your next job, and that means that the people you talk to and the people you become friends with, it has to be sincere, it has to be honest, because you don't know when you might have to call them up and ask them to help you out in your career. Most of us, I'm guessing, we're not here because we always did things right. We've been disciplined or told to do things different, and we learn lessons. And the networking aspect of it, you need friends in this business. You need friends to lean on. You need people to talk to about your career, about opportunities. And as you grow in that aspect, you start depending upon each other to help you out in any possible way. I consider George a friend, and I know I've known Steve for a long time. And when the chips are down, you can count on certain people, and those are going to be people in your network.
Let's talk about that as it relates to business. Recently, I made a comment around the bowl season. I said, I wish friends would check in when they don't need tickets. And then I thought to myself, geez, if I were Sloane with the Players' Championship or Steve with the bowl games, they must have it 100 times worse than me, maybe 1,000 times worse. But just the idea of so many people you intersect with and making time for the things that matter. I know in your case, the Lift Orlando project is huge for you. And I think that if anybody here was interested in corporate social responsibility, was interested in making the community better, you're as interested in that, if not more, than talking about how the University of Mississippi is going to do this year in football or be in your bowl game. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, first, just to your teasing about ticket requests, and all of us get hit up, but I think the message there, the moral of the story, and the advice would be that you reach out to people that you want to do business with or have a relationship in the future when you don't need them. So if you want to develop relationships, ask for time from folks. Just, hey, can I have a few minutes? Can I sit down and pick your brain, just learn about the future? You're not asking them for a job. You're not asking for a ticket. You're not asking for something. That's when I think you're going to find that they're going to remember you, and hopefully it's a meaningful relationship. It's just a give and take, and then at the right time, things will click. So I would tell you to be proactive in reaching out to folks when you don't need something from them. Second, Lift Orlando for us is it's kind of a passion first. It's a moral, code and compass for us, and for me in particular. When we rebuilt the stadium, I personally and others that agreed with me wanted to make that retransformation of the stadium more about the people that lived literally in the shadow of the facility, which has largely been a part of our town, west of downtown, west of I-4, that's been left out of the conversation of success. As downtown has grown, much of the western neighborhoods, which traditionally, are ranked amongst the highest in terms of poverty in our zip codes in Central Florida, have been left out of much of that transformation. So I wanted to see that stadium, the story one day later in life would be about how a stadium actually changed a neighborhood, how it lifted a neighborhood for the residents that actually live there. Oftentimes, professional franchises would say, hey, if you build this facility here, daisies will pop up and, everybody will be better for it, trickle down, kind of success. Never happens. It just doesn't happen. So we wanted that to be the actual DNA. So we spent the first year in 1,500 homes talking to mom and grandma and saying, hey, what would you do differently? What's your list? This has got to be your neighborhood. This has to be your transformation. And if you come up with that list, we'll connect it to the resources of the stadium's success, and we'll help you make that transformation. So, 4 years later, we found that you focus on 4 things: education, health and wellness, a safe place to live, housing, affordable housing, and lastly, jobs. You needed to have access to jobs and a way to take care of your family. So we just broke ground on a $40 million affordable housing development 2 blocks from the stadium. College football playoff selected us as the first site not hosting the national championship to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in the schools that literally are in walking distance of the stadium, because they loved what we and the residents are doing so much. They renamed the neighborhood West Lakes of Orlando. So you come to a game in the Camping World Stadium now, you'll hear welcome to the West Lakes neighborhoods in Camping World Stadium. Every single kid that stays on their grades, stays out of trouble, their entire family came to the NFL Pro Bowl and every other event we hosted last year free of charge. That's not easy to do. But I'll tell you, those kids, when they're sitting there with their 3 siblings and parents and grandparents, and they're looking at those and their parents are looking at them saying, just because my kid did something great, we all are coming to this $1,000, $1,500 event free, and the kid feels empowered, right? So these are real connective ways. You think about ESPN and all the partners that we have, NBC and all these others, that, just kids can have the opportunity to job shadow and change the course of their destiny, all because they have a relationship with a stadium. The NFL Pro Bowl chose Lake Lorna Dune Park to invest their money in and transform that field as a Play 60 field. So think of the immense resources that you have. Well, it's really actually happening. So I think that you come there and you may not see it overnight, but in the next few years, I think you're going to see a story probably not told anywhere else in the country about a venue and its neighbors. It's now part of their neighborhood, not a physical thing you got to walk around, kind of on your way to school. So we're proud of it, and I think if you do it right, it becomes a part of your culture. It becomes a part of what your job is, and I think now that's good for business. We did it for a different reason because it was the right thing to do, but now I think you're seeing that sponsors and partners are saying, I want to be a part of that, and so that's what lifted.
That's great. And so many of you who've taken the sports business models class, we talk about corporate social responsibility late in the class, but I wanted to talk about that early in this panel, because it's what drives a lot of people. In addition to their business interests and their acumen, you talk about where Sloane has the privilege to work, and they're privileged to have her as well. The leading money winner on the PGA Tour is not Jason Day, it's charity. The PGA Tour donates more money than all the other major sports combined. And 2 commissioners ago, Dean Beeman had a vision that every one of the tournaments, such as the Arnold Palmer Invitational here in Orlando, or the Players Championship in Jacksonville, or the Barclays in Long Island, New York, would benefit the community. And it's been a real privilege to work on some of those projects and to see what Valspar has done in Tampa and various other things. And I know that motivates the employees coming in. It's a cool place to work, isn't it?
It is, definitely. And for me, that was, I think, a motivating factor, too, when I started interviewing with the tour and finding out about that charitable aspect and learning more, because I didn't come from golf. I didn't have all that background, which you just very eloquently walked through. And that was really appealing to me. I was living in Savannah at the time and had just started a nonprofit a few years back. This was part of the Geekend conference that I had, and it was really meant to give back to local students and help them find careers and tools, and as it related to technology and potentially creative careers down the road. So that was definitely a big draw for me, and that really is pervasive across the culture of the tour. Both in the way that I think all of our employees give back and participate in different programs, sometimes even getting time off of work to do things, like Habitat for Humanity or whatever it might be. but I feel like also just in kind of the almost like a charitable aspect among our team. Like it really feels like a family, even though we're, a company that is, several hundred large and growing all the time. And that goes a long way. I mean, I feel really connected to my team, and especially to the people that I work with at PGA Tour Entertainment in St. Augustine. We're a very tight-knit group, and everybody helps each other out, which is awesome. Very refreshing.
So let's head west to Disney Springs and talk to Jay a little more about the culture at the Wyndham Lake Buena Vista. You made a comment in your opening remarks that you always thought you were going to be a teacher. I would actually argue with you and say you're very much a teacher. I saw the video at your hotel where the front desk manager said that if they see a piece of paper on the floor, they pick it up. Everybody's in housekeeping. Everybody sets a standard there, and I think you've done a marvelous job as a teacher. You've just not been certified.
Well, hopefully I'm making more money than the teacher too today.
You are.
No, listen, the culture is what it's all about, and culture of any business starts from the top. And we're a 626-room complex. We're on 13 acres of land. We have about 350 employees. We may not be the biggest hotel in Orlando, but we know that we have a uniqueness. We have a branding of Walt Disney World, which is probably one of the most powerful brands in the world. So we have customers coming in with this very high expectation of what they expect. And then we have our Wyndham branding, and they have their own culture. It's the largest hospitality company in the world. And so we kind of take the best of both worlds and mesh them together and try to set a culture of really taking care of the customers. And it really starts with a philosophy of, and I think it starts from my roots starting in housekeeping. Anything that my housekeepers are doing, I've done, or more than important, I'm still willing to do. And they know that. During Hurricane Matthew, I had the privilege of running the dish machine. And I haven't run the dish machine in many, many years. And one of the guys was very impressed that I could keep up with the amount of dishes that we were doing, including burning my fingertips off on taking those dishes out. But I think when you start a culture and you start to do things, you want to always set the example and the tone by yourself. And I think we've done a good job over there at the hotel. And we really get pushed to the max from the customers. When you have a customer coming in who has this expectation that the sun always has to shine on Walt Disney World, it's hard to explain to them why it's raining outside. They have this thought process that we're supposed to not have those conditions. It's like the golf and like football. Everybody has this expectation nothing's ever supposed to be bad, and I think Disney has set that tone, and we live up to it every day.
I think what you're talking about, if I were to sum it up, is the phrase servant leadership, which is something I've always believed in. And I'm going to out you, Steve. I know that after the bowl games, you actually get in your car and bring back fried chicken for the whole team. And you wouldn't expect a guy who's in negotiations with the National Football League, with major conferences, meeting with commissioners and network presidents and doing all the stuff you do to go out and pick up the post-game meal. And we all appreciate it, by the way. Thank you. Except my wife would rather me not eat it. But just talk about the culture that you have over at Florida Citrus Sports, because if I've ever been around a group that's a little engine that could, it's that group. And much like Jay just got a $10 million approval for renovation at his beautiful resort, you got a big approval for a renovation, and you both delivered on the promise, and your teams have. And just the culture that keeps that place moving every day.
Well, I mean, I like fried chicken, so maybe that's a selfish reason. But we get in a golf cart because you can't get out of the parking lots and drive down to Popeyes. My personal favorite. So it's a couple hundred pieces of chicken that we go through at midnight. But I think all of us would tell you that, regardless, and mostly in sports, I can tell you, and my sense is in kind of a television PGA Tour, it is still small, and people have to do a lot of different things, and that's what I like about it. I mean, when you come into our college sports in particular, you're trying to do way too much for the size team that you have and staff that you have. So everybody has to kind of grab a piece of the rope. And so if that's something that you want, kind of out of your career, then I think in a lot of these channels, that's what's there. I would even suspect in the hotel industry, you can't hire enough folks to kind of glide, it seems like.
No.
You're always chasing it, in all of our fields. And so to me, the culture, teamwork, being together, laughing, you're always going to have these tense moments. You can argue over things, so forth. And as long as you create a culture that says that's okay, as long as you're not disrespectful, as long as you're not, kind of treating people a way that you wouldn't appreciate being treated, but you can kind of deal with things, you can communicate, you create the type of open atmosphere. We're about ready to talk about kind of blowing apart our office and having more of an open concept. It's really kind of a closed off, older place. So, culture is so important because you want people to want to be at work. You got to be responsive and listen to each other. And so to me, I think, chicken's a small example for, it's a way that if you just realize at those moments, after you've been through it and you're tired and exhausted and you've been in the rain all day or whatever, it's that last hour where you could actually crack open a drink and eat some chicken and tell some war stories for a minute before you get in your car and go home that make all the difference. So I think culture to me is a massive part of having a successful business.
Thank you. Chad, what intangibles do you look for from graduating seniors and from entry-level employees to fit into the culture of your business unit at Golf Channel?
It's always something. Obviously, you have the technical skills which you look for, but the stuff you don't see is really what makes you successful. It's the drive that people have. It's the excitement. Anytime somebody that we're interviewing comes across as excited about the position, they want to be there. You can tell right away that they're going to be a great fit. And I think that's something, obviously you always look for. Some other things, obviously just that drive, that motivation. You want people to take initiative. It's a personality trait you can just get from somebody. Who has it, who doesn't have it. It's something that you just have to strive for. Everybody wants to succeed, and that's what you need to harness.
Thank you. That's great. Jay, much like Steve's business, that's a tough place to get into because you hire people and they never leave. I mean, you seem to retain employees. Retention seems to be a huge factor for your business. How do you retain these people so well?
Matters what position it is. In the hospitality business, it's always interesting. I get the opportunity to talk at UCF and other campuses, and I talk about the recruiting process and how to get into the hotel. And so many people want to get into events, and I remind them they want to get into events or they want to get into anything. Just take the first job in a hotel, and work hard. Volunteer for everything. Be on time. I have my pet peeve. I hate people that are late, and that tells you a lot about somebody when they're late. I've been at some places and they tell me that the teacher doesn't take attendance and I don't have to show up to class, and I can do work at my own pace. In the hospitality business, there's no such thing as working at your own pace because when you have 60,000 people showing up at the arena or at the stadium, or I have 600 people trying to check into my hotel, I need the person to be there to do their job. And if they understand that commitment, it's going to make my life a lot easier at the hotel. We're always looking for that person who has that certain personality, and I really think that one or two questions in the interview process, you kind of get a sense of who most of you are and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. I asked a question one time. I'm very big in cross-training. I think cross-training is important because we don't have big staffs. We do depend upon people, Steve, I'm assuming you assume the same thing in the PJ. They think that we have these large staffs, and we don't have these large staffs. And I asked a young man, I said, you were working at the front desk, and I asked you to go down to work in housekeeping for a couple hours, would you do that? And he rolled his eyes. I said, you just ruined your entire career. Because you didn't feel like that you would want to do that request from the hotel. And I think when you take any job, that enthusiasm of just, what can I do next? What can I do next? It pays off. And I think that's why we all sit up here, because we've learned in our own careers, saying no maybe once works, but when you get the tendency of saying no, you don't get that promotion, you don't get that opportunity to get out there and do SpongeBob, because if you didn't take those tapes home,
Yep.
you would have never been there. And those tasks are monumental in your careers. Those aha moments. There's probably those moments when you said, oh, that's when I should have said yes.
Showing up is half the battle, and I think the other half of the battle is knowing your role as a teammate. Steve talked about possibly redesigning his office for a more open area. You might see a reply all email, hey, if anyone has a few minutes, can you help us on a deadline project? Executives take note of who shows, don't they? Wouldn't you say, Steve, or either of you, Sloane? Executives take note of who steps out of their comfort level and doesn't say, I'm a content creator working under Sloane, I don't do that. That doesn't fly in today's business environment.
No, completely. Saying that something's, not your job,
Right.
That's always a big red flag to me. And seeing someone that does take the initiative to, not even just when they're asked, but to really recognize that something is needed or to go above and beyond. That's how, people on my team have been promoted or will get promoted in the future, is really taking that initiative. And we have kind of a policy within our group that, I come from the world of like, your title doesn't matter. We're all equal, and we should all be, feeling very compelled to share feedback, or if something doesn't look right, we need to speak up. And it's kind of the idea of like, I think this is a Toyota management practice. Like if you're on the line at the Toyota factory and you see something wrong, anybody has the right to like hit the stop button and like everything stops. And we have that same sort of attitude within our group, and that's been, I think, really important to making sure that things continue to improve all the time, because we're always trying to get better with everything that we do, and those are the things that I really look for, and it's been really rewarding to me, I think, since I started at the tour, finding those types of folks within my group that I can really kind of figure out how to help them grow within their career, and that's the exact kind of thing that I look for, and that's a huge priority for us at the tour, is figuring out how creatives can have a career path within the PGA Tour, which frankly hasn't really always existed. So it's kind of a newer idea, and that's exactly one of the paths to getting there.
Let's talk about newer ideas at the PGA Tour and what you're doing in the content development and deployment there. There will not be a media rights conversation ever again where digital media is not part of the equation. I remember us talking at lunch when I worked for ESPN. We signed an 8-year deal for NASCAR and then realized we didn't have the digital media rights. They belonged to Turner. That's not going to happen, and you're always pushing the envelope. I'm hearing things about virtual reality coming out of your office. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right on the digital piece and the media piece, and it's actually part of the reason I'm at the tour. A few years back, the PGA Tour's digital rights were actually held by Turner. And there was a small digital staff that was doing different things, but Turner was really handling a lot of the day-to-day production and things like that. So really a business case was made several years ago that if we really wanted to control our own destiny and become potentially more valuable in those media negotiations, that we really needed to have the digital rights in-house. So those eventually came back in-house, which is exciting. It also opened up a job for me, so yay. But it also, I think, it's one of those things you have to kind of be careful what you wish for too, because now you are in control, and if something's not working, it's on you. It's on you to make it better. So it's been a really interesting ride the last few years, and the things that we've been developing, and a lot of the industry firsts that we've been able to get out there that sometimes, when you don't have control, you can't make it happen. And, we were the first to put out a responsive website within the sports world, although now I think we've probably regretted a bit of that, but that's getting into nerdy stuff. You start thinking about other things. Virtual reality's been another important one, and a really interesting one for me personally, just as a storyteller. This is such an amazing platform for storytelling, and we were the first sports league to launch a virtual reality app with Oculus last year, and we've continued to build content for that particular platform, and building our own expertise around how to shoot and edit for VR, which is very challenging and a very different process than other types. And going forward, thinking about how we can continue to build that out, make it more interactive, make it more interesting, keep iterating. And it's such a new medium that no one's really quite cracked the code yet. So we're constantly, learning and making mistakes and, coming up with cool stuff along the way. And I guess the last thing I'll mention, just in terms of kind of, how we're really focused on digital as it relates to content. I think another really important thing, which is kind of more of the behind the curtain type stuff that probably no one really sees or thinks about, but it involves data. We've become very led by data and what we're able to learn about our fans, how they actually consume our content, what they like, what they don't like, and then try to really adjust in real time that type of content that we're putting out on our different platforms, because it only helps make us stronger and will help our audience grow down the road. But those are some of the things, like, if you're thinking about careers, like, the idea of being a content analyst, like, that didn't necessarily exist a couple of years back. So it's one of the exciting things, I think, about what we get to do in digital. Like, there's like careers that are just getting invented right now. When I was in school, like, it wasn't a thing, to become a content analyst or, maybe a producer or some of the other types of roles that we have in our group. And it's pretty exciting times.
Dating back to Scotland, there's no more traditional game than golf. And you have a commissioner who's a brilliant guy. I met him last year at the John Deere, and he's helping you get the support you need to drive digital platforms. But you're also, and he's also entrusted with being the vanguard for a sport that's been kind of slow to move and reticent to change. How do you balance that with the new platforms?
That's a very good question.
Told you it wasn't going to be easy.
Well, I think it's interesting. I don't come from the traditional golf world, so I think, sometimes I'm the weirdo in the room with, the purple in my hair and whatnot. It's not necessarily what you might expect from a traditional or conservative brand. So we do have to find balance, and I think part of that is in hiring different types of people. As we're looking to expand our team, I'm always thinking about diversity, not just in terms of like men, women, whatever. I'm thinking about like how someone thinks about something, because if we end up with a team of people, not just in my group, but across the tour, that all come at something from the same direction, yeah, it's going to be really easy to get it done because everyone's going to agree with each other, but it might not push us to the best possible solution. So I think having that balance across our organization definitely helps. And there is a lot of, there is tradition, but there's a lot of value in that particular Swinging Man logo. It comes with kind of, if you're a brand looking to associate yourself with a group that is pretty stable, like you feel pretty comfortable there. But at the same time, we've got to keep pushing because we've got to go where our audiences are. We can't expect them to come to us. So there's got to be that adaptive, that world too.
Certainly, the PGA Tour is the good housekeeping seal of professional golf. And Chad, you work with a number of good housekeeping seals when we think about the PGA of America, the LPGA, the European Tour, the other programming that you have out on Golf Channel and golfchannel.com. how do you balance your marketing teams and creative desires to push the brand and manage that with the leagues that tend to be somewhat traditional with the way their brand is presented?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get these numbers exactly right, but our core viewer is somewhere between 35 and 60. So obviously, I think, we want to grow the game. That's like one of our core values at Golf Channel is we want to grow the game of golf. We want to get more people interested. We want to get more young people interested. We want to take it to that next level. And a lot of these other tours, they get it. They understand, and especially PGA Tour, we obviously work very closely with them, and they operate the Champions Tour, the PGA Tour, the Web.com Tour. They know that this is what we need to do to grow the game of golf, and everybody's in this as a team together. Obviously, to Sloane's point, digital is where the industry's going. Obviously, distribution's going down with cable subscribers. So TV isn't the same thing that it used to be. It's it's the Netflixes, it's the Hulu, it's a different form of content, how you watch it, how you ingest it, how you deliver it to the people. Specifically at Golf Channel, we, one of the things that we're really focusing on this year is I have this little bracelet which says, "What about digital?" And it's everything that you do. It's, think about how can that relate to digital? Is this video that you're creating only for TV? Why can't it be for digital? What about franchises? Can this franchise live in these multiple areas? So I think that's obviously something that is going to obviously drive down the age of the viewers, introduce a lot of the younger people, this new generation of how content is consumed.
Do you have to wear that off hours or just when you're working?
It typically it's a little loose on me. I have really skinny wrists, so typically it just sits right next to my computer, but it's a good reminder.
Let's stay with you for a moment. We have a number of graduates who've been hired by Golf Now. That's an incredible emerging brand. A lot of people don't even know that it's necessarily related to Golf Channel unless they book their tee times on it. Do you touch that brand? And if not, the people on your team, how is that digital property emerging?
I mean, that property, Golf Now, is not just a digital property. I mean, it touches so many different avenues, whether it's, like a system for courses so people can, a management system. It's a lot of different properties. It
moves a lot of inventory.
Experience.
A lot of the golf courses have all this extra inventory, and it's an opportunity for you folks to help them find money that would have otherwise went by the wayside.
Absolutely. And I mean, as from the creative side of things, we support all their efforts, whether it be on-air promos, their artwork, their brand management in general, the new programs that they lay out. But it's ever expanding. I mean, there's so many different sides to that business, and so many people so a typical format is we have a call center. And it's a new system that we're trying out. We've been trying out for the past year. And the call center is a completely internal call center. And it's focused straight around customer service. And that right there has set the groundwork for the rest of the company to start growing from that position. A lot of people get their start in there and move to the other fields within the Golf Now business. Because everything just stays with that core value of customer service, and that's basically what Golf Now is all about.
I have some hotel rooms you could marry with some golf courses.
Well, we're getting to you, in fact, because people maybe don't think about technological advances as relates to hotels. They think about a clean, comfortable room, great guest service, but the deals that your hotel and your sales leadership does with Expedia, with other properties to move inventory, in other words, unrented rooms, the way that you have to manage your property to obviously make a profit, and also follow the Disney guidelines on property, which is also an interesting experience for you, I'm sure. Can you talk a little bit about a snapshot of your business model, if you will, current trends you're dealing with near Disney Springs?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking about how the hospitality really hasn't kept up with these emerging media markets as well as we would like it to be. Because we're franchisors, we don't get some of the better technology that a lot of independent private companies are out there. When you think of our industry, Wyndham is involved in 8,500 hotels. And to take one simple app and say, listen, this is how we want to do our technology platform across the board, it just doesn't work that way. We have 17 brands. Marriott Corporation has 30 brands. And so to take some of these technology processes, it's hard. So what happens is Expedia is actually come in and absorbed all that. They have better technology than us. They have better booking engines than us. There was just recently an article published. What Expedia spends on advertising is what all the hotel brands combined spend on advertising annually. So this big void that's been left behind has been picked up by third parties like Expedia and Booking. You know, how many, when you think about it, when you're watching TV, how often do you see a commercial about Hilton or Hyatt or Marriott? But you see a ton about Booking. You see a ton about Expedia and other travel organizations that are looking for those dollars. The uniqueness of being on Disney, technically everything I do I have to have their approval, which kind of hinders our process because it slows down what we want to try to do and what we can or can't do. They're always out protecting their brand, just like any other good corporate citizen would be doing. So being that we're there as a third party operating on their location, everything I do. So if I wanted to give a bottle of water in my room and we used a Disney touch point, technically I would have to get their approval. So all my marketing, all my advertising, all my things that I do on a daily basis, my websites, changes on my website. If I don't have the right trademark on my Disney logo, I get a little note that says, please correct the following. So it gets complicated at times. But it is amazing how much the hotel industry has kind of been left behind, and the emerging companies of Travelocity and all these other third parties have really absorbed it. Their travel stay programs are better than sometimes the brand themselves, and they become the brand loyalists out there.
Your social media has really stepped it up, your vanity websites. You have a lot of things that are moving in the right direction.
We have a lot of moving parts because we operate a Wyndham site. We actually, because we're a dual property, we're two hotels in the same location. We're managing two websites for the brand, and then we're managing two websites as an independent still because we want to stay competitive. And then you throw in there all the other channels that we have to compete in. When you think about when we send out a wholesale rate, we send it out to the world, and hundreds and hundreds of companies picked it up. So when I've been at the hotel for 10 years, we rebranded 3 times. The Regal Sun, which is where I came in originally and branded it, that brand still exists out there in the world of the internet, including that red bed that I got rid of 5 years ago. It's still out there, so a customer will think that they come into the hotel and say, I'm looking for the red bed because it had a red bedspread on it. And we're like, we don't have that. So it's really hard in today's world to kind of scrub things out in our industry and stay constant on a daily basis. It's really changed, and I envy that you have the ability to manage that yourself and do things a little bit more cutting edge. I like to use the word fast, focused, and flexible. Our industry sometimes isn't fast and very, very slow on changes a lot of times.
I think the industry is really watching what you folks have done where you divided up the two properties. You took your exterior hotel and made it a Wyndham Garden for the value-minded customer. Then you have the high-rise tower for the elegant stay, and both are at really good price points for Disney properties. So it'll be fun to continue watching your growth over there. Steve, let's talk a little bit about Florida Citrus Sports, because I still think it's a mystery to a lot of people. The idea that you're a 501c3 and you lease a stadium and you stage events and you conduct meetings to bring events like the Pro Bowl or Metallica here and all that type of stuff. We all serve a lot of masters, but I was thinking the other day where, you talk about how if you have to please everyone, you please no one, but your team, whether it's Buffalo Wild Wings, whether it's Russell, whether it's Florida Blue and the bowl game sponsors, the NFL Pro Bowl presented by Aquafina, Camping World, the naming rights that you got recently. Is everybody happy?
No. No is the answer. I don't think everybody, very rarely is everybody happy. But, I mean, you just look at all the different interests, right? I mean, Marcus Lemonis owns Camping World for the most part as the CEO, and he's got his own show, right? The Profit and the Partner, and a lot of times just that relationship in and of itself, he's got his own interest personally, and then his brand, and then what we're trying to do, and then the teams that come in. It's so difficult, but...
You've made him look really good, by the way. He
yeah,
cut himself a naming rights deal, and this guy
happy.
gets the NFL Pro Bowl and all this other stuff coming here.
Yeah, I think, the cool thing about being here today is I think the people in this room have such tremendous opportunities because, you talk about sports, you don't have to like or care about sports, I think, today to be successful in sports and in what you're doing and what I think you're learning here to do, because sports needs creative, sports needs fast-moving, content, digital, all the experts in this room, production, it hungers for, whether it's Jerry Jones or whether it's Florida Sports here in Orlando, all of us universally, it could be football, it could be soccer, it doesn't matter what it is, we need help. And really that help's going to come in the form of the people in this room, because you talk about virtual reality, you talk about the things that can happen in production in stadiums, on the video boards, on digital displays, on your applications that you're developing to grab those folks, whether they're in your building or out of your building or during games. Sports does not have that talent pool in their offices. There's no job description for it. There is no, they're struggling trying to figure out whether you outsource that, and is there really even a company that you can outsource that to? Which department does it fit into? It's all kind of happening right before our very eyes right now, where we desperately need people that are going to take what otherwise is a sport that's kind of known, all right, I'm going to go show up, I'm going to see somebody going to try and get a first down or score a touchdown and outscore the other team and yada, 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 right? I kind of generally know what the experience is going to be. I'm not running down football. I think all of us, whether it's golf, whether it's bowling, you kind of know what the sport is generally, and you consume that. It's great to consume on TV. You got this wonderful experience. I can go to my own refrigerator. It's very comfortable. It's very difficult to leave home and see these. That's why attendance in stadiums in general, whether it's baseball or soccer, they've gotten smaller and more technologically advanced and friendly, and people are, you're getting paid so much money because in all mediums, it's the live sporting event that you can't TiVo or watch later. That's why the rights fees are still exponential for sporting events. So what we desperately need are people that are going to kind of help solve the problem that we all have, which is, how do I make our experience more compelling? How can you kind of force people to just blow up the current model and say, I've got ways, I think, creatively and technologically that experience in the venue can be more enticing. So how am I taking your viewer sitting in the stands more places than they otherwise could go sitting at home? We're testing all kinds of crazy stuff in the soup kitchen. We're not as well funded, maybe as some as PGA Tour or the NFL, but everybody's kind of in it together right now. And I would encourage you to say that whether you created some of these solutions on your own and took them to these major sports, there's an opportunity for you. You personally are more valuable by coming into these individual teams, individual venues, and saying, I think I've got solutions for you in solving your problem. Because we all want those solved. And that's just my blanket speech. We're a chameleon of sorts, Florida Citrus Sports. We don't have an NFL tenant. We don't have a college tenant in this town. we are the primary tenant. So we effort to throw a jersey over all these events. We sell it that way. So if you come to me and want to buy a kind of super ticket and get to pick and choose, you're going to go out, I want a 4-event plan. I'm going to go to, the Rolling Stones a couple years ago, and later that season I want to go see an NFL preseason game. I'm going to come to see a college game on New Year's Day with the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. I want to go see, this year we're going to do an ICC International Champions Cup soccer event. So it'll be, Paris Saint-Germain or something like that against, Barcelona, whatever it might be, right? So there's something in there for everybody, and with the right mix, and we're going to throw a jersey over that, and that's what I'm trying to sell you. But we need that experience, regardless of the event, to be compelling for the kid, for the parent, for the individual young attendee. And I know some of that's food and beverage and a place to be and have a drink and hang out in different cultural parts of the building. But I can't implore you enough to say that I think the people in this room, we have not yet found the right connectivity to Full Sail, but I can tell you we hunger for it, because you can solve so many problems that just people within our sport that are making the decisions cannot solve without you. So
Thank you very much.
It's interesting. I think we all compete with the 65-inch TV at home, because the sports people are watching that on TV, but they're also coming to my hotel and having this expectation to have a 65-inch TV, because I don't have in-room movies anymore. I only have 40 channels. If I get away with 20 channels, I do 20 channels. And you're right. The people around here are probably going to be that solution to have a more fulfilling experience at a sporting event, to a hotel, to everything. It is interesting that the TV is killing us.
So I've been a long proponent that sports and entertainment and business and tourism all converges, and that if you're getting a sports business degree or a music business degree or an entertainment business degree, last I checked, that building you're going to every day is PGA Tour Entertainment. It doesn't get more convergent than that. Can you talk a little bit about how those disciplines, those skill sets are somewhat interchangeable?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. My team, we moved down to this physical location back in May, which has been amazing. Really great change for our group, just to get all of our creative talent kind of into one building, have access to all of the edit suites. We have, in fact, where we sit, we have an open environment, which you were just talking about a minute ago. Got rid of all offices. I don't have an office anymore, which is awesome. I can sit with the team and brainstorm and bug them with ideas all day. But it's huge. I mean, that idea that I think the kind of even the walls between digital and broadcast are really breaking down so much, and that was part of the reason we migrated, even though it's difficult to be away from our headquarters folks, although they're just half hour up the road. But that's really kind of where everything is going. Everything is becoming more digital in nature, and if we're able to get our broadcast folks thinking more digitally and our digital folks thinking more about things that can happen for a broader television audience or PGA Tour Live audience, it's all for the benefit of our fan. And having that kind of core set of discipline is really the key, and having that fans first mentality for us, I think, is the other part of the equation.
It wasn't that long ago where networks showed up at a venue, put up a bunch of cameras, brought in a few satellite trucks, and a telecast was made, but now there's more of a collaborative partnership. Stadiums need to be smarter, as we all know, and that was a big part of your investment. What's the difference, other than savings to the community, for you to spend a fraction of what, say, they spent to build the new stadium in San Francisco or Minnesota? You're talking well over $1 billion in both instances, and for $200 million, we have something that is user-friendly in the community. They've done something similar down in Miami. They didn't tear down the old stadium. They made Hard Rock Stadium out of what existed, but made it smarter, if you will. That just seems like really smart business.
Well, I mean, we hope so. 200 million, I could tell you that's not enough. We need some more. And
Is
I
that a
think
paid political commercial?
Yeah, I'm passing the hat.
that is a paid
Central
political
Florida
commercial.
Hotel
You'll be
Lodging
getting it at the
Association.
CFHLA meeting coming up. But no, a little bit more to solve certain problems that you learn. It's kind of like moving into a house. You realize you put some things in the wrong place. But anyway, it's to me, I was talking about, again, the changes that you're starting to see in venues, whether they're brand new or whether they're remakes. In Miami, they just kind of said, look, I don't need 78,000 seats anymore. So where would I take them? They took them out of the corners. It's hot. It's raining. It's South Florida. They put roofs over the crowd so that they could cover or put in shade 90% of the people that are sitting there. That's solving problems that they have, right? That's the customer telling them there's not enough of us to fill 78,000 seats for 10 games. I don't want to sit in the heat and the sun. I'll stay home. So they've checked these boxes, and I think you've started to see even ripped out normal seats and said, I'm going to put some people on the actual field, or I'm going to change it to loge boxes, and they're all clubs, and there's music. We're all trying to do the same thing. How do I put a camera somewhere on a cone on the goalpost or on the sideline in unique areas and allow some kid to be able to put his VR device now up to his eyes and go, I just saw that play. I want to see it really close in our parabolic view. Those are the things that I think you're going to start hearing us talk about investing in our building and kind of tasking people that are in this room to help solve it for us. So.
And you talked about customer feedback. In your instance, the networks are customers, the membership are customers, the people buying tickets on StubHub are customers. And certainly, Sloane and I were talking about how you're spending a lot of time listening to the customers and the analytics. That's been a big priority for your new boss.
Yeah, which is music to my ears. I definitely come from the philosophy that it's all about your fan. If you're serving your fan, that's the best thing that you can do. And Jay Monahan, who recently joined as PGA Tour Commissioner, has really been pushing that idea forward. And the interesting and exciting thing for us is, we're doing things now. Actually, my team is in the process of building a fan council, which will be a group of 5,000 folks that it'll be capped at that level. And
I got the email, by the way. I don't know if I'm eligible, but I did get an email.
That's good. That's good. So we're starting to build that group. Maybe you'll be part of it. And it'll be kind of a direct connection for us to get feedback from our fans on things that they like, things that they don't like. But we're also using even more passive data, whether it's having analytics around all of our social platforms and understanding what works well on Facebook or what doesn't work well. Same thing in venue. We're trying to really get a much better handle on all of our data around people that come to all of our tournaments or they subscribe to PGA Tour Live, so we can have this broad understanding of our fans and the things that they're hungry for. The other piece of that, which I think we're trying to do maybe a little bit better on now, is also thinking about our players. As a league, we're in a unique position because we're also kind of the Players Association. So we always have them in mind as we're creating content, and sometimes that handcuffs a little bit us in terms of the things that we can and can't do. But, they are obviously a very key constituent for us. We want to make sure that they're happy, that they like our app, that they have things that are helpful for them or their families. So we definitely, I think that's been a theme today. We serve a lot of masters, but being able to get that feedback and get it quickly and act on it is important. So absolutely, fans first.
Thank you. Chad, what do you hear from the vocal minority at Golf Channel, from the people that do reach out about the telecasts or things they'd like to see differently there, and how quickly do you find the programming team is to adapt to that? Obviously, everyone in programming is a genius, and they've got a great concept, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and for the most part, we've been measured by ratings, but we also have audience feedback that we pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, we actually work closely with the PGA Tour as well, and we share a lot of our data. We are trying to, find out what's effective. It makes, us run just more efficiently in general. I mean, as creatives, we obviously want the time to spend on the stuff, the big initiatives that we're doing, and we want to create these big events. We want to make them better for the consumer. We don't want to have to, worry about the 100 end pages that we have to do for one tournament that, they don't really reach the audience. Like, the audience doesn't care about the time. So obviously having the statistics to back that up, it definitely helps us. And obviously that comes straight from the consumer, and it helps the consumer ultimately. So.
Big data, get to know it. Let's open it up for some Q&A. If you've got questions, please raise your hand and wait until the microphone is brought to you. Please identify yourself by your first name and what program you're in and direct it to whomever you'd like.
Am I on? All right, cool. First off, my name is Alex. I'd just like to thank all of you for taking the time out of your schedules to come here and speak to us, and George, obviously, for moderating the panel. My question is actually for Steve. Obviously, with Amway still being a newer building here, the new stadium for Orlando City getting built, and even all the way to Dr. Phillips Center, how is it trying to pick and choose your events compared to, stuff like that goes in there and kind of the process of selecting such events?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm one who kind of believes all boats rise, type thing. And so each of these venues, thankfully, I mean, the soccer stadium's going to be fantastic. It's 25,000 seats. The Amway Center is fantastic. It's an indoor solution, similar size, 20,000, kind of in terms of capacity. The stadium's got the ability to get 65,000. And the cool thing this community's done is if you look at Church Street, they're all on Church Street, and even the Art Center, which is kind of one block off, but almost it's a corridor literally of sports and entertainment. The road itself has actually been transformed in the last couple of years. So power lines are underground, potted trees, flagpole banners. You can begin to see in World Cup in 1994, people actually, that was a walking path, Church Street to Church Street Station. I think the future, that's where it's going to be again now. And the venues, the long answer for your question is, are going to feed off each other. So you might have an NFL Pro Bowl that has a concert in the soccer stadium and, something else in the Amway Center. You might have World Cup or, be a sub-Olympic site like we were in '96. So I'm excited about things now. We used to have Dew Tour, even X Games now floating around a little bit. There's a lot of things that you can start to do that I think will use multiple venues, even concerts in that way, that I'm excited about. So I don't think we'll really be in competition in this town. I think the venues, whether it was planned or not, are of the right kind of size and scope and scale that stuff will complement each other versus being competitive.
Great question. Who's next?
Hi, hello. My name is Alberto. I'm in sports marketing and media. Of course, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all the feedback you're giving us, for all your perception of your job and your position. You're all senior manager with top position, top management responsibilities. We will be talking about group teamwork. We'll be talking about having people working with you, leading by initiatives. There's something else that I want you to share with us. What's your idea about how you delegate to those that are working with you, how important it is for being successful as a team, especially in the sports, media, and hospitality business?
Great question. Let's start with Chad. You've got 30 people working for you and working with you in the creative department at Golf Channel. How do you delegate and keep all the plates in the air?
Well, it's a good question. You have to trust who you're working with. I mean, the team that's around me is a team that I built around me. So I know what their skills are, what their skill sets, and I help them, throughout the process in what they're weakest at, and I trust them with what they're strongest at.
And Jay, you delegate to a couple hundred people a day. Last I checked, you can't run that huge resort by yourself.
Well, trust becomes obviously probably the biggest thing out there, but my philosophy is very simple. It's delegate and follow up, delegate, follow up. If you don't hold people accountable on what you delegate out, and I do delegate a lot out. Most of my executive team has been with me 5+ years. So we kind of know each other really well, but they know also that I'm going to follow up. So if I put something out there, the odds are in the next 24 hours I'm going to ask what that status is. And that's where the trust factor comes in, that they're going to have an answer.
Part of your question, too, is upward mobility. And I think that, any company that you partner with should have your interest, at heart in some respects. I mean, there's only so much space in some of these, and at some point you got to grow out of the company, and that's okay. I think, you just want a great team member. You want somebody who grows with you, helps you be better, work better, and then give them that opportunity either within your own organization or somewhere else, and they're earning it every day. So you're owed, in my opinion, you're owed that. So I would just tell you, be honest with your employer. This is what my goals are. This is what I want to learn while I'm here. I know this is my job and I'm going to get my job done, but I want to get exposure to a couple of these other things while I'm here. The more you communicate, I think, what your aspirations are, the more you'll see that I think your teammates and team leaders in respects will put you in those positions to have that opportunity, and then you'll go, kind of where you want to go.
And I would say over-communicate, and also I would add that when an executive sends you a note, an email, a text, and says, have we thought about doing this, it's not a friendly suggestion, right, Jay?
No, it's not. But, what Steve was saying, it's none of us are starting careers like it used to be. You spend 30 years in the same place. I have no expectation anybody who's starting a job with me tomorrow is going to be with me 10 years from now. So if you're telling somebody what your long-term goals are, I think that's absolutely the way to start the process. But I also think that, like, when you get the job and 5 minutes later you want to be the senior vice president, be a little patient, just a little bit.
By the way, if any of these people hire you, don't say you wanted to always work here and you never want to leave, because they're going to get real nervous because you want to be upwardly mobile and get experiences.
There's
Anyone
also
else?
a book I'll recommend for you called Creativity Inc. It's spectacular. It's about Pixar and kind of their approach to working within a creative team and managing one. And there's a lot of just really interesting lessons in there. Plus, if you like Pixar movies, there's good stories. So.
I can second that as well. I've also read that book.
That's good.
Very cool.
We have time for one last question.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Tanya Paris, and I'm in the Sports Marketing and Media degree program. And the question I really had was, how do you guys feel with the rise of virtual reality, working with golf is going to help bring in the new, younger demographic?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably for me.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the reasons that we've gotten active in the space. I think going after an early adopter audience, we are probably a little bit more likely to hit folks that might not already be golf fans. And the other piece of it, our strategy is really thinking about how we can take some of the content that we're creating for a virtual reality environment and turn that into 360 content that can reach a more mass audience on Facebook or YouTube. So we're going at it that way. There's a lot of other strategies we have in terms of reaching a younger audience. And in fact, on our digital platforms, we do have a pretty young audience. Our social media median audience across, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, et cetera, is about 31, which is significantly younger than what we see on our broadcast, which I think speaks a little bit to just different consumption patterns among that audience as well. But it also helps, I think, to demonstrate that there's a lot of potential out there. And then we did another thing in the last year or two. We created a new brand called Scratch TV. This one doesn't use the Swinging Man logo, although we don't pretend that it's not ours either. But it gives us a little bit more freedom by not having our good housekeeping seal of approval on it, that we can be a little bit zanier and kind of push the envelope and do some different things. It is. It's the kind of more of the wild side, and there's a lot of things that you'll find on those channels that are a little bit unexpected. And it's all, if you haven't checked it out, feel free to check it out. Let me know what you think. It's all done as a social media first property. So the website honestly doesn't matter. It's all about what we're doing on Facebook or Snapchat, versus other things. But VR for us, I think, will continue to grow. And really the name of the game there is experimentation. So I don't know if you're into VR, but definitely happy to chat more about that later.
Chad, as a program provider following in the footsteps of ESPN and its many revenue streams, you've got to be excited about the prospects.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think that's, we've had several talks actually with the PGA Tour about, how they're using VR and a lot of the new technologies coming out. And, in general, like, they're just cool. Like, we're at that stage right now where, technology is just going so fast and all these new cool little things that are happening. So now I think the big struggle is, how do you take something that is so cool and actually like fit it into a tangible thing? Like what can this actually be down the road? So I think that's a good part of the industry right now is, really exploring all these things and and how do you create these ideas from this idea?
What a panel. Did we over-deliver? Thank you. Thanks so much for attending our session today here at Full Sail University. We especially want to thank our guests, Steve, Sloane, Jay, and Chad, taking time out of their very busy lives and sharing their knowledge and their valuable information with us. I want to thank everybody who joined us online. This will be available, obviously, on streaming replay, and we want to thank everyone for coming and would ask you to join me in a round of applause for this incredible panel.